Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of the anime series Vampire Knight. And I didn't really like this series. And I was just going through Netflix because catching up on anime, kind of seeing what was on, just seeing what other things are out there. And at first I thought, oh, this could be interesting. Interesting take on vampires or whatnot, and see what goes on with it. I was kind of really disappointed because there was a kind of inconsistency in the tone of the show overall and what it was attempting to achieve. So the basic setup is this guy has pretty much made this academy for humans and vampires. Day class, night class. Kind of trying to get vampires and humans to coexist peacefully. That these vampires that they had were going to not drink human blood and drink instead these kind of tablets that would satiate their hunger while not being as good as actual blood. And I was like, okay, this sounds like an interesting premise. And then it kind of divulged into just this kind of relationship stuff with the other stuff at the periphery. And I don't mind that if that's like the complete goal up front. But even that's not really executed properly. Because we're getting into this information of Yuki Cross, and she's kind of the main protagonist, and kind of facilitating between her love of Kaname, the vampire that had protected her when she was smaller, and Zero, the kind of adopted kind of brother that their adopted father had taken in because she didn't know who her parents were. His parents were hunters who were killed by a vampire. And it's like, okay, this could be interesting, and it's just done in kind of a weird, kind of plotting way. And it's just like, okay, we slowly learn what's going on and who's who and what's what. Now, the vampires have interesting and cool powers. Like, one of them can use ice, the other fire, kind of elemental and kind of different kind of skill-based stuff. They're not really used at all. I mean, they're used to some extent because there's some fight scenes, but not enough to have actually made their inclusion worth it at all, in my opinion. It's almost like saying, this person has deadly proficiency with knives, and you use them only once and in a way that is not really pertinent to the plot whatsoever. It's like, okay, that's cool, but I mean, that would have been better if it had been the focus. But no, we get this focus of back and forth with Yuki trying to help Zero because he was bitten by that vampire and is exhibiting vampire tendencies now, even though it's taken years for it to take effect. And pretty much lets him feed off of her. And it's like, okay. And seeing his like self-loathing and everything, it just kind of dragged out a little bit. I don't feel as well done or as well presented as it could be. And then, of course, Kaname is like very protective of Yuki, but kind of keeps his distance. And then we find out later on that Yuki is his sister, I think. Wasn't very clear on that because I watched the whole thing up until the point of the end of which Yuki is shown to be a vampire who was locked away because their father's brother wanted to drink her. Well, drink all the family, but that's how purebloods retain power. It's kind of like a Highlander effect. I drain you, I gain your powers, I become more powerful. But there's not clear delineation of what the purebloods are and kind of like the delineation of their power and everything. We just know that they are more powerful than regular vampires, which we still don't know how we probably know, but it's not clearly explained how they keep propagating if they don't propagate the same way as like the purebloods. It just gets really kind of confusing. And then we see that the vampire hunters like consumed a vampire or whatnot to get powers. And that Zero's kind of screwed up because his twin brother, he didn't eat him in the womb. Because usually there's no twin vampire hunters because they usually, one eats the other. And then that's driven in farther in where his twin brother was wanting to be stronger or like turn into a vampire by this other pureblood, but Kaname kills her, which sets him on a revenge path that he then goes and helps restore his uncle to power, but then feels kind of bad about it, and then offers himself up for Zero to consume, and then that somehow brings into balance the vampire hunter and vampire side to make him a vampire knight title of the series thing. And it's like, what? How is this working? I mean, I don't mind that some things aren't completely explained in anime. Like, Goku achieving insane amounts of power over and over. It's because the plot demands it. I understand that effect. I understand that kind of stuff in Naruto. All that kind of stuff. All the cool animes. That's fine. Sometimes you don't need explanations on certain things. But with this kind of thing, it's like, I don't know what's going on, and you're kind of only loosely explaining it, because he then becomes powerful enough to pretty much take down Kaname's uncle with a hunter gun, which I don't know how he's able to use. And of course we see Yuki, who has achieved her vampire form after Kaname helps her, using a hunter weapon, which is silver, which usually purebloods can't use. Its logic kind of starts to break down to a certain extent. It's almost like too many wheels are spinning at once, and then certain things start flying off, and you're like, I have no idea what's going on. Because if this was just a kind of high school kind of romance kind of thing, that would be kind of different. You kind of have that, and it's like, okay, I was more interested in combining that with a supernatural element to kind of make other things interesting. And it's just like, instead it detracts, and it's like, I am a what? Okay, so she's a pureblood vampire, and she's kind of the sister of Kaname, and of course they're kind of wed to be betrothed because purebloods are kind of the usual stuff for like royalty and all that. It's like, okay. And she doesn't suffer too many adverse effects other than wanting blood and all that, and not completely controlling her powers, but yet she goes off to fight this pureblood who's ancient, and is like, I'm gonna do this. And then, of course, help Zero kind of gain his abilities to their potential, and then him and Kaname are the ones that kill him. And that's another thing with the vampire powers. Kaname had killed that pureblood and absorbed her power. He goes off, and he's pretty much become OP to the point that he just starts disintegrating lesser vampires. It's like, okay, that's kind of cool, but I wanted more from that. Otherwise, once they saw that like one had been vaporized, they probably would have been like, you go on in, I'm leaving. No, he just starts powdering the rest of the stuff. I was like, okay. And if he's got that much power, what's like the relationship between that kind of power that he's got now and his uncle? It's just like, what? And all of the stuff's kind of dragged out, like the stuff with Zero and just like this, that, the drinking of the blood of Yuki, of Kaname saying, I will protect her and all that. It's like, okay, you keep doing this over and over. Alright. And then that also goes into the kind of weird, kind of high school humorous moments that pop up, and it just kind of, it's a disconnect. It's like, they usually pop up in the weirdest spots, and it's like, what? And I don't mind those kind of like, oh god, no! Seem like the adoptive father act all kind of emotional and all that for like the children and all that. And it's just, it wars with the tone of the show. If it's built into the tone of the show to have that kind of weirdness, that works. But when it kind of jars and breaks you out, it's like, what? That's a little bit too goofy for this point? That's when it kind of has a problem and kind of breaks you out of it, and you're just like sitting there confused like, am I watching a comedy? Am I watching something serious? Am I watching a romance kind of plot thing? What am I watching? When you start seeing all the elements and they're all in one certain spot and you can't see the connecting threads, it's like something wasn't done right when this was like writing and produced and all that to like be condensed from the manga or whatnot, or the manga is just kind of like wet too. And also the art was kind of, the art and animation style was just kind of weird to me. Now granted, it is an older kind of anime, but I've seen anime from these kind of times, and even like Death Note is like 2006, and that had better animation than this, and I'm like, what? It was just sometimes just really color or offness. It just didn't look right in certain respects, and I'm just like, okay. It's not the worst that I've seen. It was just like, it's another element that just kind of took me out, and I'm just like, eh. And I was just like, when I'm going through anime, I kind of want to have something that, it doesn't have to be perfect, but just some kind of stuff that draws me in, like Death Note, Dragon Ball, Naruto, Ronin Warriors, Gundam, all those kind of series that I've missed some since Toonami's been off and all that, but it's back on, getting back to Dragon Ball Super and all that. It just has to have a consistency and some kind of funny things. Well, it doesn't have to have completely funny things. It just has to have a sense of what it needs to be and a consistent tone and things that work within its universe. Like with Death Note, that was serious, but it had funny kinds of things with like Ryuk wanting apples and all that. The comedy complemented itself within the broader tone and framework of the show. In this, it was like high school kind of reaction humor that's like, oh no, that fits more with that, more than with like the tone of the serious vampire like politics that are kind of brought in the background. Again, 2 to 3 different kind of tones that just don't mesh together. And that's kind of why I didn't really like this anime and really wouldn't recommend watching it unless you're like, I need something to watch. You know what I mean? And it's just like, okay. And I really wanted to like it better because it had an interesting premise and concept. And I can understand seeing people like talking about an anime and being disappointed in it and being like, it had a good premise / concept, it just did not deliver on that. And that's the sad thing about this. And I wish I could be better about it, but I'm like, there's so much anime out there, find the better stuff. So, those are my opinions on the anime, on Vampire Knight. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.